In this video, I'm about to show you 30 hot dog chains to avoid no matter what, while also showing you 5 that are actually a good choice for you. Number 30. Sabret. If you've ever walked the streets of New York, you've seen the bright blue and yellow umbrellas that scream Sabret. For decades, they've been the dirty water dog of choice for tourists and locals alike. But here's what most people don't know. Sabret isn't just a street cart thing. Their hot dogs are all over America, sitting in grocery store coolers at Walmart, Costco, ShopRite, and plenty more. Chances are you've probably had one without even realizing it. And here's the kicker. In 2017, Sabret's parent company had to yank back a jaw-dropping 7.2 million pounds of hot dogs. Why? Because customers were biting into them and finding chunks of bone and cartilage mixed in. The USDA didn't mince words either. They slapped it with a Class 1 recall, the most serious kind, meaning there was a real risk of injury. Think about that for a second. You're expecting a ballpark-style hot dog, and instead, you're chewing on a bone shard. Add in the fact these Franks are packed with sodium, nitrates, and preservatives, and suddenly that classic New York flavor doesn't feel so classic anymore. It feels like a gamble. Number 29. Nathan's Famous. Nathan's Famous is one of the most recognizable names in the hot dog world, born on the Coney Island boardwalk back in 1916. For over a century, they have been marketing themselves as the classic American Frank, complete with their legendary July 4th hot dog eating contest. And it worked. The brand grew into more than 150 locations across the United States, plus a massive grocery store presence. From ballparks to shopping carts, Nathan's has become a household name. But in 2017, that shiny reputation took a serious hit. Nathan's retail hot dogs, made by John Morrell and Company, were recalled because pieces of metal were discovered in the product. This was not a small hiccup. It was a nationwide Class 1 recall, which means the government considered the risk of injury very real. Imagine biting into what should be a soft hot dog only to hit a chunk of metal. That is not exactly the American dream meal. On top of that, critics point out the heavy use of nitrates, preservatives, and sky-high sodium levels. The Coney Island nostalgia is strong, but the reality is that Nathan's has given people plenty of reasons to think twice. Number 28. Curtis. Curtis is one of those brands you may not brag about, but you have almost certainly seen it in the meat aisle. Walk into a Kroger, a Walmart, or plenty of regional grocery chains across the Midwest and South, and you will find packs of Curtis hot dogs sitting right there next to the bigger names. It is part of John Morrell and Company, the same processor that produces Nathan's retail Franks, and it also supplies bulk packs to cafeterias and food service providers. That means even if you never picked up a Curtis pack yourself, you may have eaten one at a ball game or school lunch without knowing it. In 2017, Curtis ended up on the USDA recall list when John Morrell was forced to pull more than 200,000 pounds of hot dogs. The problem, once again, was metal fragments inside the product. The government labeled it a Class 1 recall, meaning this was not just a paperwork mistake, it was a real danger. Imagine handing your kid a hot dog only for them to bite into a piece of metal. It is the stuff parents lose sleep over. Number 27. Bar S. Bar S is everywhere. Walk into Walmart, Dollar General, or discount grocers across the South and Southwest, and you will see their bright red packs stacked up cheap, sold in bulk for families looking to stretch $1. It is one of the most widely available hot dog brands in the country. In July of 2016, Bar S was forced to recall approximately 372,000 pounds of hot dogs and corn dogs after tests showed possible listeria contamination. The USDA classified it as a Class 1 recall, the most serious category, reserved for food that poses a high risk of causing illness or death. While no confirmed cases were tied directly to the products, the potential danger was enough to pull them off shelves nationwide. Look at the nutrition label today, and the problems keep piling up. Bar S Franks average more than 600 milligrams of sodium per serving, which is about 1/4 of the daily limit in a single hot dog. Add in fillers, nitrates, and preservatives, and it is clear this brand is built for price, not for health. Cheap might sell, but the hidden cost makes Bar S a bad apple, or in this case, a bad dog. Number 26. Oscar Mayer. Oscar Mayer is the hot dog brand almost every American has seen, whether on grocery shelves at Walmart, Target, or Kroger, or on the road in the form of the iconic Wienermobile. a giant hot dog on wheels that has been part of the company's marketing for decades. That kind of visibility makes it feel like a family brand, a harmless symbol of backyard cookouts and childhood nostalgia. But peel back the shiny image, and the record tells a different story. In April of 2014, Kraft Foods recalled more than 96,000 pounds of Oscar Mayer hot dogs. The problem? Packages labeled as classic wieners actually contained cheese dogs, which introduced undeclared milk allergens. For anyone with a dairy allergy, that mistake could have turned a casual meal into a trip to the emergency room. The USDA classified it as a Class 1 recall, meaning the risk was serious. And even without a recall hanging over them, Oscar Mayer Franks are loaded with problems. A single hot dog can carry more than 600 milligrams of sodium, plus fillers, corn syrup, and mechanically separated meat. Pair the allergen scandal with that nutrition label, and the Wienermobile starts to look more like a rolling billboard for everything wrong with processed hot dogs. Number 25. Vienna beef. If you have ever had a Chicago-style hot dog, chances are it came from Vienna beef. Their Franks are a Windy City icon, served under neon signs at greasy spoons, pushed from carts downtown, and stacked high in supermarkets like Jewel-Osco, Mariano's, and even Costco. For Chicagoans, Vienna beef is more than a brand, it is part of the city's food identity. But even icons stumble, and Vienna beef's history proves it. In July of 2019, the company had to recall over 2,000 pounds of hot dogs after metal fragments were discovered in the product. The USDA classified it as a Class 1 recall, meaning there was a real risk of injury. Imagine ordering a Chicago dog loaded with pickles and sport peppers, only to bite down on a piece of metal hidden inside the frank. That is the kind of nightmare no extra relish can cover up. And when you look at the nutrition panel, the picture does not get any prettier. A Vienna beef hot dog brings more than 500 milligrams of sodium to the table, plus nitrites and preservatives. For a brand that markets itself as premium, Vienna beef shows that even the most beloved names can belong on the bad apples list. Number 24. Johnsonville. Johnsonville sells itself as the king of backyard cookouts, the brand you throw on the grill when you want to impress friends with juicy brats and big smoky flavor. Their packaging screams tradition and quality, and you can find their hot dogs and sausages everywhere from Walmart to Kroger to Costco. But behind the grill marks and flashy ads is a company with a messy record. In 2019, Johnsonville had to recall over 95,000 pounds of sausage because people were finding pieces of rubber inside. That was not a typo, rubber inside their sausages. Just a few years later, in 2025, the company was back on the USDA recall list, this time yanking more than 22,000 pounds of cheddar sausages after consumers discovered hard plastic fragments. Both incidents were classified as Class 1 recalls, the government's way of saying this is the most serious type of food hazard. Even when there is no foreign material hiding inside, the nutrition panel will make you flinch. A single cheddar sausage can pack more than 800 milligrams of sodium and a hefty 250 calories before the bun and toppings even hit the plate. For a brand that claims to be the grill master's choice, Johnsonville feels more like a gamble with every bite. Number 23. Kent Quality Foods. Kent Quality Foods is not a brand you see advertised on TV, but it is a big name in the background of the meat industry. Their hot dogs and sausages are shipped out in bulk to supermarkets, school cafeterias, diners, and even stadiums. That means plenty of people eat Kent products without even realizing it, which is why their track record deserves attention. In 2018, Kent Quality Foods recalled more than 81,000 pounds of hot dogs and sausages because the labels left out soy, a common allergen that can trigger dangerous reactions in sensitive consumers. The USDA called it a Class I recall, the highest level of concern. Then in 2019, the company was back in the headlines when bits of pink rubber were discovered in their sausages. That was another Class I recall, showing a troubling pattern of quality control failures. Nutritionally, Kent Franks are not much better. A single hot dog can pack more than 500 milligrams of sodium, with preservatives and fillers loaded in just like the worst of the mainstream brands. For a company that supplies so many different outlets, those mistakes and that ingredient list make Kent Quality Foods a brand worth avoiding. Number 22. Eckrich. Eckrich is one of those names that has been floating around American kitchens for generations. You see it stacked in the coolers at Walmart, Kroger, Safeway, and just about every big grocery chain in the country. For a lot of families, especially older ones, Eckrich sausages and franks were the dependable choice, the brand you grab without thinking twice. The packaging even leans on that old-timey trusted since 1894 slogan, but the history tells a different story. In April of 2017, Armour Eckrich Meats was forced to recall over 90,000 pounds of smoked sausages because customers found something no one wants in their dinner: pieces of metal. The USDA called it a Class 1 recall, their top tier for serious health hazards. Imagine biting into a sausage and hitting metal instead of meat. That is not tradition. That is a lawsuit waiting to happen. And even if you dodge the foreign objects, the nutrition panel is not kind. An Eckrich Frank can carry more than 600 milligrams of sodium, a heavy load of nitrites, and plenty of fillers. For a brand that sells itself as trustworthy, the reality is that Eckrich is anything but trustworthy. Number 21. Hillshire Farm. Hillshire Farm is one of those brands that has been in American kitchens for decades. You see it everywhere, from Walmart and Kroger to Costco and Safeway, with packages of smoked sausages, little cocktail weenies for parties, and classic franks that get tossed on the grill. For a lot of people, Hillshire Farm feels safe, familiar, and dependable. But sometimes the familiar brands are the ones that trip you up. In March of 2023, Hillshire Farm had to recall nearly 16,000 pounds of smoked sausage after customers found bone fragments in the meat. The USDA did not treat it lightly either, stamping it as a Class 1 recall, their highest risk category. Think about that for a moment. You are eating what should be a soft frank, and instead you are crunching down on bone. That is not dinner, that is danger. And the nutrition label does not exactly save the day. One Hillshire Farm frank can pack more than 600 milligrams of sodium, with preservatives and nitrites riding shotgun. For anyone watching their blood pressure, that is a big red flag. Hillshire Farm may sell comfort and tradition, but its history and its nutrition make it another clear entry on the bad apples list. Number 20. Dearborn Sausage. Dearborn Sausage is a name plenty of Midwestern shoppers know well. Walk into a Meijer or Kroger in Michigan, Ohio, or Illinois, and you will find their bright red and yellow packaging in the deli case, marketed as a trusted, family-owned brand with old-world recipes. For locals, Dearborn has that small company charm. But when it comes to safety and nutrition, the story is not so charming. In September of 2024, Dearborn Sausage had to recall nearly 2,000 pounds of ready-to-eat wieners. The problem was misbranding and undeclared allergens, specifically soy and pork, that never made it onto the label. The USDA gave it a Class 1 rating, the highest level of concern, because for someone with an allergy, a missing label can turn a hot dog into a hospital trip. For a company that prides itself on tradition and trust, that mistake cut deep. And the numbers on the back of the package are not much better. A single Dearborn Frank can push 500 to 600 milligrams of sodium, plus the usual load of nitrates and preservatives. For anyone watching their diet, especially older Americans, that is a serious red flag. Dearborn might feel like a neighborhood favorite, but its history and nutrition put it squarely on this list. Number 19. Boar's Head. Boar's Head has built its image on being the premium choice at the deli counter. Walk into a Publix, Kroger, or Safeway, and you will see the logo stamped across the glass case, promising quality meats that are supposed to be a cut above the rest. For decades, people have paid more for Boar's Head hot dogs and sausages under the belief that they are safer, cleaner, and worth the extra money. But the brand's record proves that even premium labels can stumble. In May of 2024, Boar's Head was caught up in a sweeping listeria outbreak. Millions of pounds of deli meats were recalled nationwide, including products that covered hot dogs and sausages. The USDA classified it as a Class 1 recall, the most serious level, because listeria can cause miscarriages, severe illness, and death. For a company that thrives on a reputation of purity and trust, that kind of contamination is devastating. And when you check the nutrition label, the shine fades even more. One boar's head beef frank can run over 500 milligrams of sodium, plus preservatives, just like the cheaper brands. Premium price, same old problems, and a recall history that makes the brand hard to swallow. Number 18. Applegate. Applegate likes to sell itself as the saint of the hot dog aisle. Grass-fed, organic, natural, all the buzzwords are plastered across the packaging, and the price tag makes sure you know you are buying into something better. You find them lined up in Whole Foods, Target, and even the organic section at Walmart, promising a cleaner bite than the usual Franks. But here's the problem. The reality has not always matched the image. In August of 2014, Applegate had to recall almost 16,000 pounds of hot dogs because of possible listeria contamination. The USDA did not shrug it off either. It was labeled a Class 1 recall, the government's way of saying this stuff can make you seriously sick or worse. For a brand built on the promise of purity, that kind of contamination is a brutal slap in the face. And flip the package over, the numbers are not angelic either. One Applegate beef frank still packs around 450 milligrams of sodium, nearly a fifth of your daily limit in a single hot dog. Clean branding or not, that is still a salty, preservative-loaded product dressed up in a fancy wrapper. Number 17. Butterball. Butterball is the name most people trust when Thanksgiving rolls around, the turkey giant that has been carving its place in American kitchens for decades. But Butterball does more than whole birds. They also pump out turkey franks, sold in Walmart, Kroger, Safeway, and just about every major grocery store in the country. These franks are marketed as the lighter, healthier alternative, the kind of hot dog you can eat without guilt. But when you look at the record, the story changes. In March of 2019, Butterball recalled more than 78,000 pounds of ground turkey after salmonella was discovered. It was not hot dogs specifically, but it was the same supply chain, the same brand, and the same promise of safety that consumers believed in. The USDA called it a Class 1 recall, meaning people were at real risk of ending up in the hospital. For a company that prides itself on trust, that kind of contamination is not something you brush aside. And nutritionally, these so-called healthier franks are not saints either. A single Butterball turkey dog can still pack 500 to 600 milligrams of sodium, along with nitrites and preservatives. Swap beef for turkey, and you still end up with the same salty processed product dressed up in a better-for-you label. Number 16. Kirkland Signature. If there is one hot dog every American has heard about, it is the Costco dog. That Kirkland Signature quarter pounder, paired with a soda for $1.50, is almost a piece of pop culture at this point. People brag about it, post pictures of it, and some even make trips to Costco just for the hot dog. But here is the kicker. The very thing everyone celebrates as the best deal in America is also one of the heaviest hitters you can put in your body. The numbers are jaw-dropping. That single dog, before toppings, weighs in at 1/4 pound. Add the bun, pile on the condiments, and wash it down with the soda they hand you, and you are looking at more than 1,500 calories and over 1,500 milligrams of sodium in one sitting. For anyone watching their heart, their blood pressure, or just trying not to feel like they swallowed a brick, that is a health grenade disguised as lunch. Costco loves to say you are getting quality at a fair price, and sure, your wallet might thank you, but your body, not so much. This so-called deal is proof that sometimes cheap comes with a hidden cost. Number 15. Gwaltney. Gwaltney is one of those names you see in the grocery aisle and know right away it is the budget pick. The bright red packaging pops out at Walmart, Kroger, Food Lion, and even Publix, stacked up in the refrigerated cases like it has been for decades. For shoppers trying to save a few bucks, Gwaltney is often the go-to, offering hot dogs that cost less than the big names like Oscar Mayer or Nathan's. But the price tag is not the only thing that is low. The quality has raised eyebrows for years. Owned by Smithfield Foods, Gwaltney is part of a massive meat empire that has seen its share of recalls. While Gwaltney Franks themselves have not made major national headlines, Smithfield brands have repeatedly been hit with contamination issues and mislabeling recalls. That umbrella of risk follows Gwaltney, whether they like it or not. And then there is the nutrition. A single Gwaltney hot dog can pack 600 to 700 milligrams of sodium, along with fillers, preservatives, and nitrites that put it right in line with the cheapest, saltiest dogs on the shelf. For anyone thinking they are saving money, the truth is you are trading dollars at the register for a health hit later. Number 14. Dietz & Watson. Dietz & Watson has built its image on being the fancy choice at the deli counter. You will spot their meats in Kroger, Safeway, Publix, and even some Costco locations, often sitting right next to Boar's Head with signs and displays that scream premium quality. For decades, the company has pitched itself as the brand you pay extra for when you want the good stuff. But expensive does not always mean safe, and it certainly does not mean healthy. In August of 2019, Dietz & Watson deli meats were swept up in a USDA Class 1 recall over potential listeria contamination. While the recall mostly covered cold cuts, the hot dog line shares the same facilities and the same brand reputation. For a company that markets itself as pure and premium, being tied to a pathogen that can cause severe illness and miscarriages is not a small detail. Then there is the nutrition. A single Dietz & Watson beef frank can run well over 500 milligrams of sodium, right in line with the bargain basement brands it claims to be better than. Premium branding and higher prices may convince some shoppers they are making a safer choice, but the label and the recall history tell a much different story. Number 13. Carolina Pride. Carolina Pride has been a Southern staple for more than a century, the kind of brand you spot in Food Lion, Kroger, Walmart, and even smaller chains like Piggly Wiggly or Ingles. The packaging plays on tradition, pitching itself as the classic hot dog choice for families who want something familiar. But behind the friendly branding and low prices, Carolina Pride's record tells a different story. Over the years, Carolina Pride has been swept into USDA recalls tied to mislabeling and undeclared allergens, mistakes that can be serious for people with health conditions. Even if their name did not make national headlines like Oscar Mayer or Bar S, those recalls show that the company is not immune to the same food safety slip-ups that plague the rest of the industry. For a brand that sells itself as dependable, that is not the kind of history you want hanging over your dinner. Then there is the nutrition. A single Carolina Pride Frank can deliver more than 600 milligrams of sodium, along with nitrates, fillers, and preservatives. It is sold as a classic, but the nutrition label looks just like the cheapest hot dogs on the shelf. Familiar? Yes. Healthy or trustworthy? Not so much. Number 12. Sugardale. Sugardale is one of those old-school names that has been sitting in American grocery stores for nearly a century. Founded in Ohio back in the 1920s, it has grown into a budget staple you can find in Walmart, Kroger, Sam's Club, and plenty of regional supermarkets. For older shoppers, the red oval logo is familiar, a brand that has been around forever. But being around forever does not mean it has been doing everything right. Sugardale has been caught up in USDA recalls over the years, including mislabeling and undeclared allergens in sausage products. Those may not sound dramatic compared to a massive national listeria scare, but for someone with food allergies, a missing ingredient on the label is more than a typo. It can send you straight to the ER. And then there is the nutrition. Sugardale hot dogs are classic budget franks, meaning they are loaded with fillers, nitrates, and sodium levels that often top 600 milligrams per link. The brand sells itself on tradition and affordability, but the nutrition panel looks like the same old salty, preservative-packed profile as every other cheap dog out there. Sugardale might be familiar, but familiar does not mean safe or healthy. Number 11. Cloverdale. Cloverdale might not have the national fame of Oscar Mayer or Nathan's, but walk through Walmart, Costco, or Kroger in the Midwest, and you will see it staring back at you. Founded in North Dakota, Cloverdale sells itself as a hearty, all-American meat company, the kind of brand you grab when you want a pack of Franks or brats for a family cookout. The marketing leans on tradition, but when you look closer, that tradition comes with baggage. Cloverdale has been tied up in USDA recalls for misbranding and undeclared allergens in its sausage products. For people with allergies, that is no small mistake. It is a serious health risk. The USDA does not hand out Class 1 recalls lightly, and Cloverdale has had to own up to those errors. For a company that prides itself on being family-friendly and trustworthy, getting basic labeling wrong is a bad look. And nutritionally, Cloverdale is no savior either. Their hot dogs and brats are loaded with preservatives and regularly top 600 milligrams of sodium per link. That is the same salty, nitrite-heavy profile you find in the cheapest budget brands, just in different packaging. Cloverdale sells itself as hearty Midwest flavor, but your heart is the one paying the price. Number 10. Schneiders. Schneiders might sound like a Canadian brand, and it is, but thanks to Costco, Sam's Club, and Kroger, plenty of Americans see those big family packs of Red Hots and sausages right in the freezer aisle. For many shoppers, especially older ones who remember when imported foods felt special, Schneiders sells the idea of a premium frank with old world tradition. But dig into its history and nutrition, and the shine fades fast. Schneiders is owned by Maple Leaf Foods, the same company behind one of the deadliest foodborne illness outbreaks in modern history. In 2008, Maple Leaf's deli meats were tied to a listeria outbreak that killed more than 20 people. While that crisis was centered in Canada, the shadow stretches across every brand they own, including the Schneiders Franks sold in U.S. warehouses and grocery stores today. Add to that smaller recalls for mislabeling and allergens, and the track record gets shakier the closer you look. And nutritionally, there is no premium edge here. A single Schneiders Red Hot can pack more than 600 milligrams of sodium, plus the usual load of preservatives and nitrites. The brand may market itself as authentic and hearty, but the numbers and the history put it right in line with the rest of the salt bombs in the hot dog aisle. Number 9. Koegels. If you grew up in Michigan, Koegels is more than a brand. It is practically a tradition. The company has been cranking out franks and bologna since 1916, still family-owned and still leaning on that old-fashioned image. In Michigan, you cannot walk into a Walmart, Kroger, or Meijer without seeing the bright yellow and red Koegels logo stacked in the cooler. That is their home turf. But thanks to those same big box stores, Koegels Franks also find their way into parts of Ohio, Indiana, and even Illinois, giving the brand recognition outside of the Great Lakes region. It is not coast to coast like Oscar Mayer, but it is big enough that plenty of Americans know it. The problem is, tradition does not equal healthy. Koegels has had its run-ins with USDA recalls, mostly tied to misbranding and undeclared allergens. Not the flashy kind of scandal that makes national news, but the type of mistake that could send someone with allergies straight to the ER. And nutritionally, Koegels is no better than the giants it competes with. One frank can load you with over 600 milligrams of sodium, plus nitrates and fillers that keep it shelf stable. It may sell itself as local and trustworthy, but the numbers tell a different story. Number 8. Old Wisconsin. Old Wisconsin sounds like the kind of brand you can trust. Hearty smoked meat straight out of America's Dairyland. You will see the logo in Walmart, Costco, Sam's Club, and Kroger, usually piled high in the sausage and snack section. For a lot of shoppers, especially older ones, Old Wisconsin feels like a safer, more traditional choice compared to the flashier national names. But here's the truth, the numbers and the history tell a very different story. Start with nutrition. One Old Wisconsin smoked frank can run well past 600 milligrams of sodium, some pushing closer to 700. Even the so-called lean turkey versions are salt bombs dressed up with nitrites and preservatives. It is the same filler-heavy formula as the cheapest hot dogs on the shelf, just wearing smoked and hearty branding to look more authentic. And then there's the track record. Old Wisconsin is owned by Carl Buddig & Company, a parent brand that has been tied to USDA recalls over listeria concerns in its deli meats. While those recalls didn't all have Old Wisconsin's name on them, it's the same family of products, the same supply chain, and the same risks. Premium image or not, this is just another dog that doesn't live up to the label. Number 7. Welshire Farms. Welshire Farms is one of those brands you spot in the organic aisle and immediately think, this must be the healthier choice. The packaging is covered with words like natural, uncured, and organic, and you will find it sitting in Whole Foods, Kroger, and even Walmart's organic section. For shoppers who want to feel good about eating a hot dog, Welshire is the one that makes you think you are dodging the usual junk, but the track record proves otherwise. In 2017, Welshire recalled a line of hot dogs because of undeclared allergens, specifically milk that was never listed on the label. The USDA flagged it as a Class 1 recall, which means real danger for anyone with allergies. That is not the kind of slip-up you expect from a brand that markets itself as clean and trustworthy. And flip the package over, the numbers do not back up the hype either. A Welshire Beef Frank still packs close to 500 milligrams of sodium, preservatives are still in the mix, and it is hardly the fresh alternative the branding makes it out to be. Natural or not, Welshire's hot dogs prove that a fancy label does not erase the same old health risks. Number 6. Smith's. Smith's has been selling hot dogs since the 1920s, and in Erie, Pennsylvania, it is practically part of the local culture. Walk into a cookout there, and chances are you will see Smith's footlongs on the grill. Over time, the brand has stretched beyond its hometown pride. Thanks to Walmart, Kroger, and Sam's Club, you will now find Smith's Franks in coolers across the Midwest and Northeast. The logo and packaging scream premium, the kind of hot dog you are supposed to feel good about serving. But let's be honest, the numbers do not back that up. Bite into a Smith's Frank and you are biting into more than 600 milligrams of sodium, plus nitrites and preservatives to keep it shelf-stable for weeks. Add in the fat content, and you are staring at the same kind of health hit you would get from a bargain bin pack of Gwaltney or Bar S. The only premium part is the price. And Smith's has had its stumbles. USDA records tie the brand to recalls over undeclared allergens, mistakes that might sound small, but for anyone with health issues, they can turn dinner into a hospital visit. Local pride or not, these dogs pack the same risks as the rest. Number 5. Kayam. Kayam loves to play the part of the ballpark legend. Founded back in 1909 in Massachusetts, this family-run brand grew into the official hot dog of Fenway Park and has shown up in stadiums from Boston to New York. That kind of association makes fans think they are biting into something special. A hot dog with history, quality, and maybe even a little magic. But here is the reality check. When you pull back the wrapper, Kayam looks a lot more like every other Frank sitting in the grocery cooler at Walmart, Kroger, or BJ's Wholesale. One Kayam beef Frank hits you with 550 to 650 milligrams of sodium, plus nitrites and preservatives to keep it fresh. Dress it up with a bun and toppings, and suddenly that premium ballpark dog is nothing more than a salty, processed calorie bomb. For seniors keeping an eye on blood pressure, this is not nostalgia. It is a strikeout waiting to happen. And Kayam has not been perfect on safety either. USDA recalls tied to mislabeling and undeclared allergens have dinged its record. Stadium famous or not, Kayam proves that even the so-called premium dogs can stumble just like the bargain brands. Number 4. Kunzler. Kunzler is one of those brands that carries a lot of history with it. Founded in Pennsylvania back in the early 1900s, it is still family-owned and proudly sells itself as a premium Pennsylvania Dutch meat company. You can find the Kunzler name in Walmart, Kroger, Giant, Weis, and other supermarkets across the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast, with packs of Franks, bologna, and sausages stacked right alongside the national giants. For older shoppers, the name feels traditional and trustworthy. But the label tells a different story. A single Kunzler Frank can load you with 600 to 700 milligrams of sodium, along with nitrates, preservatives, and fillers that keep it shelf-stable for weeks. Premium branding aside, it is the same salty hit you get from the cheapest hot dogs on the shelf, just dressed up in packaging that leans on family tradition. And Kunzler has not been spotless on safety either. USDA records show recalls tied to undeclared allergens and misbranding in its sausage and Frank lines. For a company that prides itself on heritage and trust, failing to tell consumers what is in the package is a major stumble. Tradition may sell, but nutrition and recalls tell the real story. Number 3. Bryan Foods. Bryan Foods calls itself the flavor of the South, and for plenty of families in states like Mississippi, Alabama, and Tennessee, that slogan rings true. The brand has been around since the 1930s, and today it sits under the Tyson Foods umbrella. Walk into a Walmart, Kroger, or Piggly Wiggly in the South and you will find Bryan hot dogs and smoked sausages stacked in the cooler. For many older shoppers, it feels like comfort food from childhood. But comfort does not always mean safe or healthy. Nutritionally, Bryan Franks are a straight shot of salt and preservatives. One dog can pack 600 to 700 milligrams of sodium, along with nitrites and fillers that bulk up the recipe. It may look like a friendly family brand, but the nutrition facts are no different than the cheapest budget dogs on the shelf. And Bryan has had its share of problems. Under Sara Lee and later Tyson ownership, Bryan products have been swept up in USDA recalls tied to listeria contamination and mislabeling. For a brand that markets itself as trustworthy Southern tradition, those slip-ups are hard to ignore. Bryan may sell nostalgia, but behind the logo is the same old story: high salt, preservatives, and a shaky safety record. Number 2. Farmer John. If you grew up on the West Coast, Farmer John is a name you already know. The brand was born in California in the 1930s and became famous as the supplier of the legendary Dodger dog at Dodger Stadium. For decades, grabbing a Farmer John Frank at the ballpark felt like part of the American pastime. But ballpark nostalgia does not erase the reality of what is inside the package you pick up at Walmart, Kroger, or Costco today. Farmer John hot dogs hit hard on sodium, often 600 milligrams or more per Frank, along with the usual load of nitrites and preservatives. Even their beef and pork varieties are built on the same heavily processed base, making them less of a premium ballpark experience and more of the same salt bomb you get from any bargain brand. And the safety record has not been flawless either. Farmer John products have been pulled in USDA recalls tied to listeria contamination, and even foreign material found in processed meats. Those are the kinds of headlines no company wants tied to its name. The Dodger dog may be iconic, but the grocery store version of Farmer John is just another reminder that tradition and taste can come with some very real health baggage. Number 1. Shensen's. Shensen's is one of those names longtime West Coast shoppers will remember. Born in San Francisco back in the early 1900s, the brand built a reputation on old world-style franks and sausages. Today it lives under the Smithfield Foods family and shows up in Costco, Safeway, and Kroger coolers across California and the broader West Coast. For locals, it carries that familiar, almost nostalgic look, the kind of brand you see at backyard cookouts and ball games. But nostalgia can hide some ugly truths. Nutritionally, Shensen's hot dogs fall right into the same trap as every other mass-market Frank. A single dog can hit 600 milligrams of sodium or more, with nitrates and preservatives baked in. That old world-style pitch may sound classy, but your heart and blood pressure will not care what the marketing says. And the brand has not been immune to mistakes. Shensen's products have landed in USDA recall lists for mislabeling and undeclared allergens, issues that can turn a casual dinner into a serious health scare for anyone with sensitivities. West Coast roots or not, this is one brand that proves heritage and marketing don't erase the same old risks. But if you thought all hope was lost, think again, because here are 5 brands you actually don't need to be worried about getting them in your fridge. Starting with number 5, Fork in the Road / True Story Foods. Now, let's talk about a brand with a name that almost feels like a metaphor. Fork in the Road. These hot dogs aren't your average ballpark mystery meat. In fact, they're marketed as honest dogs, made from pasture-raised beef, sourced from family farms, with simple seasonings instead of a chemistry lab's worth of additives. No synthetic nitrates, no fillers, just beef, spices, and natural curing. If you're the kind of person who reads ingredient labels and actually cares where your food comes from, Fork in the Road might feel like a breath of fresh air. The company has always leaned hard into transparency. Think clean labels, animal welfare certifications, and a promise that their meat is raised without shortcuts. Of course, this level of integrity comes with a catch: price and availability. These hot dogs cost more than the supermarket standards, and you won't always find them at every corner store. But that's the trade-off. You're paying for quality, for peace of mind, and honestly, for a hot dog that actually tastes like beef instead of salt and preservatives. So if you're tired of playing what's really inside this hot dog, Fork in the Road is one of the few brands that can look you straight in the eye, or at least through the packaging, and say, "We've got nothing to hide." Number 4, Niman Ranch, a name that's become almost legendary in the better meat world. If Fork in the Road feels like a boutique secret, Niman Ranch is the premium heavyweight. The brand chefs, foodies, and farm-to-table restaurants have been bragging about for years. Their hot dogs are made from beef and pork, raised on independent, family-owned farms that follow strict humane practices. No antibiotics, no hormones, and no feedlot shortcuts. In fact, Niman Ranch has built its reputation on working with farmers who actually care about the animals and the land, which is a rare thing in the processed meat industry. Ingredient-wise, their hot dogs skip the mystery fillers and byproducts you'll find in the cheaper brands. They go for uncured recipes with spices, garlic, and paprika instead of chemical cocktails. And when you throw one on the grill, you get that snap, that sizzle, and an actual meaty flavor that reminds you why hot dogs became a backyard staple in the first place. Now, the flip side. These dogs are pricey. You're not grabbing a pack of Niman Ranch for a budget barbecue. But you are getting consistency, quality and the peace of mind that you're not feeding your family a science experiment in a casing, my tip, save them for a special occasion. Number 3, Teton Waters Ranch. If you've ever wondered what a hot dog would taste like if it came straight from a pasture instead of a factory line, Teton Waters Ranch has the answer. Their hot dogs are made from 100% grass-fed, grass-finished beef. No shortcuts, no grain fattening, no feedlots. That means the cattle spend their lives grazing on open land, which not only produces richer beef, but also gives these hot dogs a nutritional edge with more omega-3s and less junk fat. On the ingredient side, they keep it refreshingly simple. You're not going to see byproducts, fillers, or chemical nitrates on the label. Instead, it's just beef, water, sea salt, and a handful of seasonings. Exactly what you'd expect from a brand that built its reputation on clean, honest sourcing. The taste? Bold, meaty with that little snap when you bite in, and for a hot dog, that's half the experience. They're especially popular with families who want to give their kids something better than the standard mystery meat, but still keep that classic backyard cookout vibe. Now, the catch is price and availability. These dogs usually cost more than the usual supermarket brands, and you're most likely to find them at places like Whole Foods, Kroger, or through delivery apps. Number 2, Coleman Natural Foods. Now let's talk about a name that doesn't get as much hype as Applegate or Niman Ranch, but absolutely deserves a spot on the good list, Coleman Natural Foods. Coleman has been around for decades, long before organic and clean label became trendy buzzwords. Their hot dogs are made with 100% grass-fed beef, raised without antibiotics or added hormones, and the ingredient list is short and recognizable. No fillers, no artificial preservatives, no weird byproducts that make you wonder what you're really eating. The flavor is straightforward, meaty, and smoky, and while they don't always have the gourmet foodie reputation of Niman Ranch, Coleman is a workhorse brand that's more widely available than a lot of other premium options. You'll find their uncured beef hot dogs in big grocery chains like Walmart, Kroger, and Publix, which makes them one of the few truly good hot dog brands you can actually grab during a normal weekly shop. Price-wise, they usually sit in that sweet spot. More expensive than the mass market mystery dogs, but not as wallet-punching as some boutique brands. That balance of quality and accessibility has kept Coleman around and respected for years. Number 1, Organic Prairie. Rounding out our list is a brand that often flies under the radar, but absolutely deserves attention. Organic Prairie. This company is part of the same cooperative behind Organic Valley, which means their hot dogs are backed by a network of family farmers committed to doing things the right way. Their uncured beef hot dogs are made with 100% organic beef, no antibiotics, no synthetic hormones, and no genetically modified feed. The ingredient list is refreshingly clean. Beef, water, and a handful of natural spices. No byproducts, no fillers, none of the shady stuff that gives hot dogs a bad name. What makes Organic Prairie stand out is their focus on true organic farming. This isn't just marketing lingo. The cattle are pasture-raised on organic land, which means better animal welfare and a more natural diet. It's the kind of standard that reassures you you're actually getting what you paid for. Flavor-wise, these hot dogs are hearty and satisfying, leaning more on the pure beef taste than oversalting or masking with additives. And while they're not as widely available as something like Applegate, you can find them in Whole Foods, natural grocery stores, and even order them online. So if you're looking for a hot dog that goes all in on organic integrity, and you don't mind paying a little extra for it, Organic Prairie is one of the best names to trust.